The nation mourns the loss of 44 police officers and personnel ambushed by MILF and BIF forces in the conduct of its mission to arrest 2 suspected foreign terrorists. Because of this, there is growing concern it could trigger an escalation of incidents which could jeopardize the passage of the proposed Bangsamoro Basic Bill pending in Congress. And tonight we are joined by Professor Julkipli Wadi, Dean of the Islamic Studies at the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City. Good evening, sir. Welcome to NewsLife.
Good evening. Good evening.
Dean, now, what is your assessment of the Maguindanao incident?
Well, it was really unfortunate that so-called encounter would happen, because we are at the almost last phase of the discussions in the BBL, and also the last phase of the term of President Aquino, and therefore any untoward incident like what happened in Maguindanao would really, decelerate the momentum of the peace process, and we are back into many series of almost the same situations in the past. That's why I think we had really to surface our statesmanship, leadership, and envision and look at the broader context, and envision a brighter future for all of us.
Now, how much is this incident affecting the peace process?
Well, it is really affecting in the sense that there are now many legislators who had expressed, withdrawal of their support of the BBL, and that would, entail another effort from Malacanang to convince them that they have to go back and support the peace process, or else what is the options available? And I think there is no option but have to finish what was started. My metaphor is that the Aquino administration has already built a house, but it is yet to be finished, and it is yet to be occupied. So would it just jeopardize the whole process and will not finish the whole thing, given that there are just a year and few months left? So therefore, there has to be, I think, overwhelming support on the peace process, even if there is this debacle that we just experienced.
Now, Dean, what are the concerns being expressed by Muslim brothers due to the call of some sectors to junk the measure, and some sectors even pushing for an all-out war because of this incident?
Well, I think they don't like the idea of, obviously, of an all-out war, because if war erupts in Mindanao, it's not any other people who would suffer. It will, like in the past, be Muslims, and they had suffered so much. Those people who had not experienced war would just easily say, we want an all-out war. But for those people who had been in the cycle of peace and war, then obviously they don't want it. But I think if a situation is forced against them, well, they had been, in a sense, used in this state of war for many decades, and therefore they could manage. But I think the effect and the impact would be felt not only by Muslims in Mindanao, but even by the nations as a whole, because what would suffer is the country. We will again be going back to zero again and again.
So you're saying at this point in time, a knee-jerk reaction would actually be bad?
Obviously.
It has to be really...
Obviously, because I think we have to be clear that much have been done in terms of time and resources, in terms of the commitment made, and the international community has already supported the peace process. Even if we say there were lapses in the what President Ramos referred to as strategic planning and executions of the whole operations, but I think it's really not in the interest of the nations to destroy everything. And while we, of course, we could understand the emotion, what I call the passion of the day, we really, in fact, extend our condolences to the families of the victims. But we need to move forward and really envision a brighter future for all of us.
It really is a tragic and unfortunate event. We see also in social media, many people are really calling for war, for things like that. Some people are saying, how sincere are both sides, seeming that the Bangsamoro Basic Law is between the government and also the MILF, and what transpired in Maguindanao was between government forces and the MILF.
Well, we could understand the sentiments in the social media, but you know, as far as sincerity and of both parties, I think there is much confidence building measure that had already been forged. There's already rapport between the two parties. But in a situation like the encounter in Maguindanao, it's really difficult for, say, the leadership in the MILF, including those in the military, to come in, because the exchange of fire is something that you know, other party or even those in the hierarchy would have difficulty, especially so that the incident happened early in the morning, and practically those in the other side do not know who are in the other side. So these are situations, in fact, beyond the control of those in the hierarchy of either the Philippine National Police or the Moro Islamic Liberation Front.
Now, Dean, there's a demand for the MILF to return the firearms taken from the dead soldiers and turnover of those involved in the incident. Now, will the MILF heed to the call of the government?
I think it makes sense that there has to be such demand. We have to remember, I think tomorrow there will be a meeting in Malaysia between the two panels, and they will talk about decommissioning. In fact, if only this operation was not done prematurely, said operation could have been better done if it was made, say, after the demobilization. That is, when the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and the armed forces are already fully in full partnership, so that they can do such an operation, you know, to get rid of any terrorist group or any threat groups, and so on and so forth. But the situation is still uncertain. So therefore, such an operation should not be done, because we could not expect full participation or cooperation from the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. But be that as it may, I think what is needed is, in the talks in Kuala Lumpur tomorrow, demand could be done that those arms should be part of the process in the demobilizations, including possibly a demand for the culprits, especially those who did the gory, you know, in fact, death and killings on those soldiers, just as probably also the MILF could also demand something in terms of why the SAF did not make any coordination despite the different mechanisms in the ceasefire agreement. So I think let's give the parties the benefit of the doubt to flesh things and in fact make demands so that these things could be addressed properly.
So you're saying, like, tomorrow there will be a meeting of the minds. Now, on your personal thoughts, what do you think is the best way to resolve this incident and to make sure that in the future this will not happen again?
Well, I have heard that both camps, that is the government and the MILF, will be doing the respective committees or investigations. But our worry with that kind of separate investigation is what if the findings would be different?
Yes.
What we are saying is, since there are mechanisms in the ceasefire agreement, especially the role of the international monitoring team, why not invite the IMT to come in and serve as the investigating group to do the evaluation, the assessment, and so on, and the data gathering and so on, so that that group would be neutral enough and objective enough, and therefore the findings and probably even recommendation would be acceptable to both parties. I think that that's the proper venue for the investigation to be done.
Now, Dean, finally, as an educator and also part of the Muslim community, now how do we move on from this? How do we make sure that hot-headedness will not prevail in this one? How do we move on from something like this to ensure that in the future real peace will actually be presented?
Well, earlier I mentioned about statesmanship. I mentioned about leadership. I think this is really important, especially those in the House of Congress, both in the House and in the Senate. We have to look at the bigger picture. Even as I think the MILF would have to rally people, you know, not to react in a knee-jerk manner. Much efforts have been done, especially moving this peace process forward, and they have to finish it, especially that the BBL is in its last phase. So I think everyone needs really a kind of a reflection of where we are now, and let us help to move this process forward.
Well, we just hope for a peaceful resolution on this. On that note, thank you very much for joining us here tonight at NewsLife. That was Professor Julkipli Wadi, Dean of the Islamic Studies at the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City. Thank you.